Why have I quit my job? Why have I, bought a van? And why am I going to drive around the country? Well, I'm passionate about the idea that you need to be heard. And I want to stitch these stories together across the states. We're going to find the commonalities. And it's going to be really an amazing experience. And I look forward to you joining me on the job. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Mental Health Today. I'm your host, Ken Stearns. And there's a little snippet of me kind of pontificating what I may find on the road during my other podcast show, The Jar. And that common thread was mental health and just all the mental illness struggles that I saw my guests go through, and they relayed the stories. And it's been an amazing journey for me physically traveling across the United States, but it's also been an amazing journey spiritually, hearing these stories of desperation, people overcoming it, finding help, getting better, and then mostly, or maybe not mostly, but quite often turning those journeys into a personal passion where they end up jumping into the mental health space to do something about it. I had actually the last couple of guests I've had here where I'm at now in Santa Fe, and then just previously in Durango, a couple of people that have done just that. So I've got Sharon Rolph, our next guest today. And Sharon's kind of an interesting character for me because I dive into an area that I have not cracked open yet, Sharon. I mean, I think this, maturing communities and what goes on in maturing communities is, obviously it's going to be a massive amount of people entering into this space. And I haven't had anybody on the show. We haven't talked at all about seniors and the mental health. And I imagine this is like, if we talk about a silver tsunami, it's going to be a silver tsunami of people needing, mental health conversations. And I just wonder, I don't know how you deliver that and how you manage that. It's great. A lot of people are going to be in homes, but a lot of people are going to be isolated and alone and bored, which we just talked about a little bit. And that's a terrible combination for mental health. So with that happy note, Sharon, welcome to Mental Health Today. Thanks for being a guest. And hopefully by the end of this, you're going to make me feel so good about the situation. It's going to be a happy ending.
Yeah. What got me kind of started on being a retirement coach was I imagine it started, I was working at Boeing and somebody was telling me that, the myth going around here is that once you retire, you die within 3 years. And that was
oh my God,
hit me in the heart. But I drove Lyft for a year while I was trying to pay down a debt. And somebody in my car said that myth was going around their job too, and it had nothing to do with Boeing. So to me, that speaks highly of the boredom factor in retirement. And a lot of people, when they don't have a business card anymore, they don't have a task to do, they don't have a team to work with, they don't have something to do in retirement, they become bored because maybe their whole purpose in life was their job and they didn't have any hobbies. Or the other thing, Ken, is that they might have worked tons of overtime. They might have been in a highly competitive job, or that they were traveling so much. I think pilots, in fact, I had a pilot in my car when I drove Lyft, and they're in a different city practically every day. So where's their support system when they're not flying anymore? Do they have a group of people that know and like and trust them? And I'm starting to chew on the word belonging and community. And I'm not an expert there yet.
I like it.
Yeah. So the boredom factor, there's lots of distractions with Netflix and Hulu and 200 stations on TV and YouTube. They're not interactive usually, though. There's nobody to talk to. There's nobody to brain. And so I have been working on a way to introduce myself in with some tips. And so I actually just this morning did a tip on boredom, and let's see, I'm scrolling through my page here. Actually, let me touch on the fact that I actually felt invisible most of my career.
Why is that?
Because I kind of made a vow when I was like 8, 10, 12, 14 years old that I kept saying like 100 times, thanks heavens he keeps his hands off me.
Ah,
I wanted to not be visible, so I decided that I needed to make good grades. I needed to not rock the boat and be very obedient. And it wasn't until just maybe even 6 months ago that I realized that vow to be invisible was all through my career, and that I needed to kind of break that in order to have clients find me. And
yeah, right. That's right. Right. Okay. Okay. Now you're like, the light goes on. Like, yeah, you probably don't want to be invisible anymore.
yeah, but another thing that I shortly after we chat, I took this webinar out of England that said all about mental strength. So I like to talk about the mental strength of side because that doesn't have the stigma that mental health does, and yet there can be a lot of similarity. So he was saying that when you're facing a tense situation, talking to somebody that you don't know how it's going to go, or you're going into a meeting that that might be kind of touchy and tense, and he said, well, first recall to mind a warm memory.
Okay.
And he said, hold that for 15 seconds and then go into your meeting and it'll go much better. And that was maybe
for sure.
early days of neuroscience, you know. But and at that time when I was going through the listening to his webinar, I thought, okay, one of my favorite memories was in third grade when I was asked to be a reader for the school program for Christmas. And so I was like reader number 2, and there's 3 of us. And I thought, well, how do you be a good reader? Nobody trained me. So at third grade, you know, I'm looking around and saying, okay, it seems like those people that are in front of others, they need to speak up so they can be heard. They need to speak slow enough so they can be understood. And you're supposed to look at your audience once in a while, make eye contact. And that was my warm memory. And it, and the best part of it was at the end of the program, when everybody was leaving, somebody came along and 1 or 2 people said I was their favorite reader. That made me feel so good because I had actually trained myself in a, third grade way. Anyway, but when I went back to try to use that nugget of truth about mental strength was when I went to actually give a presentation at a conference about mental strength, and he said the author said, I realized that when I control my thoughts, I control my life. And that reminded me of a time I was in Tampa, Florida. I had moved from Seattle area to Tampa, Florida, and I had been reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and really chewed on that. I loved what it was training, but somehow along that move, that not knowing, I knew 3 or 4 people down there and rarely saw them, but I started. I was looking at Joshua in 1 and 2 in the Bible, and Joshua 1 verses 6 through 9 says, "Be courageous, do not be afraid." Like about 9 times, be of good courage. And I started stomping my foot and saying, I refuse to live my life based on fear. That's a way of controlling my thoughts. how many of us realize we can control our thoughts?
Oh, yeah. What a great moment.
Yeah.
Is that, do you hear the phone? Do you hear the phone?
Yeah. That's
You want to grab that?
Yeah.
You want to grab that real quick?
Yeah.
Let's just turn it. Yeah, let's just, because otherwise that may go forever. Little short break while we address to some of the audio issues. No worries. Oh, there it is. We had a little alarm going off.
It's my reminder for wanting love, fun, and acceptance. And abundance. Love, fun, and abundance. I need more of that in my life. So that's a little reminder to have some positive thoughts for a moment.
I have some reminders like that myself. That's so funny.
Yeah.
So very interesting. So you finished the corporate career and really realized you don't want to die after 3 years. and so how how is that you get through that part, and now you're on this another journey to try to help other people and to get people around you. And I mean, it's really beautiful. I love this idea. What do you see? What does it look like in a couple of years if things are successful? What do you kind of see in your imagination?
I've become aware of a program that, so in my career at Boeing, I had seen myself as an empowerment facilitator. And so I just transferred from the corporate setting, and I said, well, I'll empower boomers now. And boomers seem to struggle with having a new purpose without that job and, something to be contributing to life. There's actually a big void of how people can find ways to be involved. And I've got some resources that I've been collecting over the last 5 or 6 years along that line, movies and websites and books. But I actually wrote a book myself called Fresh Courage in Retirement. And I put a lot of those resources in the back of my book. But a lot of people feel like they deserve to spend all this time traveling. I can certainly appreciate traveling and retirement because there's a whole different level of learning, being out in the world that, and that's kind of one of the third or fourth reason I'm doing my coaching, because I want to travel too, and figured I hadn't saved enough to do as much as I'd like to be in traveling. But the whole, once you forget that you're in charge now, nobody tells you that when you quit your job, you have to get yourself out of bed instead of your alarm clock. You've got to have a reason to do that. And
yeah, exactly. You need a reason, right? And I wanted to touch on this. I was, and I'll let you take off again. The biggest surprise to me is, you have a schedule at work. Depending upon who you are, you're kind of told what to do, right? You got deliverables. It's pretty clear, and if it's a good company like Boeing, it's very clear cut what you do, what season you do, when you do it. This, in the fall we do this, and in January we start a new plan, and so you have this very rhythmic thing going on for 10 or 20 years in your life. And all of a sudden, you get the gold watch and you get a smack on the fanny and out the door you go, and you wake up the next day, probably at the same time you normally wake up, right? Like you have for 50 years. So, I think that just was the part that struck me is a great opportunity because, maybe even the transition, your last 6 months of work, there should be talk about this, right? How to start integrating a different schedule into your life. So you don't just, there's just this thin, fine line. You're employed, now you're retired. That seems like madness for a company like Boeing.
Yeah, I started meeting with a friend here in Edmonds that she never has told me her age, but I figured she'd been retired long enough that she could coach me a little bit on how is it, in retirement.
Okay.
So she told me some of her interests and why she does them. And she travels some when her son actually handles her budget. So I don't know when she decides she's going to go visit various kids, out of town. But it was and I guess another thing I'd come across was even 3 years before you retire, have a process of thinking about how do you want your days to be.
Yeah.
I think I wrote a column about sitting on a front porch with my dog, having a cup of tea, in the morning and watching the sun come up and smelling fresh air and that kind of thing. I don't remember adding to that picture what was I doing other than watching things grow. And where I live now, I almost daily take a walk. Sometimes I don't do it in the rain, I have to admit. But that daily walk keeps you mobile, and that's very important. Well, I've gotten to be quite the reputation about always taking dog biscuits with me. So I tell people I get kisses from dogs because I've never married and had kids, So that's my fun thing, and I like to watch the squirrels and whistle at the crows. But you have to add the other thing, Ken, that is really important, and I don't think people catch this easily at all, and that is where we've been doing in our jobs. We're getting paid to make things, projects and so forth. It's now time to live from your heart. What do you want to do? We don't know what we want. We don't know what will make us happy. Do you know
been buried?
Do you know
buried, right?
Yeah. So I'm still working on my list. I did write something last week about things I thought would be fun. And it just sounded like my vision board all over again instead of really, I've been trying to make myself a commitment to go down here to the waterfront that's just a mile away on a weekly basis. How hard is that?
Should walk to it.
Yeah.
So make it halfway tomorrow, and a little bit more the next day.
Yeah, there's a guy that lives in my building here that I see him down there practically every day. So he's doing a good job of that. But to me, Ken, what really gets me about having all this free time in retirement, what a blessing it is. But people that are bored stiff and can't imagine what to do next, well, I have to admit, I started bouncing off the wall about 3-4 months into my retirement when, my insurance and Medicare and all that stuff had been taken care of. I thought, how do I know if I'm productive? That was kind of important to me. And in my first day of coaching school, they actually taught us how to know ourselves on the inside. They call it an essence statement. I've kind of renamed it to be your inner spark or your intrinsic motivation. And when at the end of having done this exercise over a couple of days, they had us stand in a circle and we all had to read our essence statement to each other. And people were kind of choking up about it a little bit. And when it came to my turn, I thought nobody's ever asked me to reveal my soul before.
Welcome to this enlightened world of coaching and personal development.
So here's mine, Ken. I am precious jewel of wisdom. I am colorful collaborator, motivator, and learner. I am tranquil, authentic, and pure inspirer. I light fires.
Beautiful.
Now, what that represents about lighting fires is I want to light people's inner spark, to have a reason to get out of bed, to be excited about what they can still contribute because they're doing it from what they value. There's nobody saying, you got to get your work done.
We have to make that 14th widget today.
Yeah.
Or we don't hit the number production, blah, 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 for the blah, 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 for the blah, 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 which matters nothing in the world of things.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That is
it seems,
very
well, in
interesting
fact, one of
journey.
the lines I found was Dale Carnegie says, doing what you enjoy doing um, is always interesting and energizing. So when you get out of bed because you motivated yourself to do it, you have a place where you matter and you make a difference. It could be the Boys and Girls Club. It could be mentoring somebody with one of the skills you have. It could be, well, in fact, I made up a future you book. It needs a different title, but I listed about 50 things. If you have a hard time dreaming, I'll give you some ideas. So it could be just all these roundabouts. They need somebody to tend to the garden of the roundabouts. Or I heard of somebody following the monarch butterflies through a season. And I think you start down in South America someplace. And what about what about making a goal of touching the 7 seas in the world? Or singing, taking a singing group to some prisons, or being a pen pal to somebody that you've met and build a bond with. It can be as simple as extravagant as you can dream, but I come up with 50 ideas of getting people to get some delight flowing.
To find what that delight is.
Yeah.
I wonder, I mean, are there resources for seniors right now and how to do this stuff? I mean, it seems bananas that you're coming up with these ideas and it's in void of any other. There's no other like association of retired individuals doing good in America.
Well,
there's got to be a thing.
Yeah, AARP has some. I think they have a program that is like a job match. It seems like there's a couple of them, and I should have them at my fingertips. But
it's a good place for me to go search around is the AARP website and to see what they're doing, because this should be their thing.
Yeah, AARP has in fact a purpose prize, and they've been doing this for about 20 or 30 years. In fact, I saw a story and I wanted to put it in my book so bad. I hunted and hunted. I could not get back to this story that I found about the Purpose Prize. And what amazed me about it, Ken, was that this gentleman, he was Indian, East Indian. He looked like a tall fella, and he connected a couple dots. He noticed that if they were able to teach 8 and 9-year-olds computer skills, girls especially, it would save them from going into prostitution because they were bringing money into the family and not being sold.
Yep.
What amazed me, women would understand that, but for a man to see that and commit himself to making a difference there, whoa. So let's see, I'm looking through my chapter appendix here. Foundations and compassion. I did interview this guy's wife. I booked the call with him, but his wife came on, and here she's founded a group called Unstoppable Foundation. It kind of flustered me because I didn't know what to ask her. It was a surprise. But one of the tips that she gave me that I've shared a lot is the easiest transition for going into retirement, if you want to grab something to hang on until you figure out what, and she says, do what you do for charity. Now, she had been given this by a mutual friend, and she'd gone through an awful divorce. And he said, well, do something for others that will replace the pain in your heart.
Beautiful.
And so somehow she was considering about that time to do something in Nepal. And so she said, well, if building one house in Nepal, overcome that pain, no, that's not going to do it. 10 houses? No, that's not enough either. She built 100 houses, and all the logistics and material and all that. So that began the Unstoppable Foundation, and now they're providing teaching people in various countries. They kind of adopt a different country each year, and they teach them how to provide healthcare or teaching or essential things that they need in the country to build a country stronger and a good foundation for a healthy and prospering country. So it's been fun just even interviewing other people, like you probably know.
We meet, this is one of the best jobs, on the planet. Talk about knowledge. I was just sitting here thinking, about how I always learn something from every guest and what a valuable chance it is. Yeah.
So I have put together a resource list of about 3 pages of, like I say, some websites and some movies and some books. And of course, you can get it from my book that's available on Amazon, Fresh Courage in Retirement, Finding Purpose, Essence, and Fulfillment. I make these art blocks when things are beautiful, they process in our brain differently. And so these are actually scattered throughout my book. In fact, one of my favorite ones is, may you feed a hungry world through me. And I'm now realizing that's part of my life. Why I'm here.
Yeah, that might be your purpose, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think we're getting close to the close. And I think you touched on something that was kind of in my head a little while ago, purpose. And with all the resources and everything else, you can try to you can go build 100 houses. You can go do a lot of things for, but is it your purpose? And I don't even know 100 houses is going to satisfy somebody if it wasn't their purpose in the end, right? It might alleviate the pain from the divorce, but it's not going to replace, it may become their purpose. They might get such joy out of it. But I think this is the most powerful thing, and helping people find their purpose. It's not easy to find your purpose. And I think sometimes it's only there when you look for it and you've got a desire and you're open to it. I don't think it's that easy. So it's an interesting conversation.
It kind of, one thing that we often miss in the search, Ken, is our values. Do we know what we value? I value collaboration. There's something coming up in 3-4 months that I'm looking forward to, because I can see the strength of collaboration that's in this new program. And it just so jazzes my engine to get to learn how to do this and it involves finding collective intelligence and collective wisdom. And I don't have to be, they say, we're no longer the sage on the stage. We're the guide on the side. We get people to share what they know, and we just guide them in how to answer some pretty dynamic questions that they go home refreshed instead of just being talked at. It's totally different experience.
No longer the sage on the stage. And what a terrible job to have, right? I mean, what a terrible role to have, be the sage. I'd never want to be branded with that. What a terrible thing.
Well, what I am branded with, and I kind of created it myself, is the Queen of Courage on Instagram.
I did see that. I almost put it in I almost put it in the name, right? I almost put Sharon Rolph, Queen of Courage, but I thought, that might be a little too risque.
No, it's in fact, this whole, Joshua 1, the courage. And having put it on Fresh Courage on my book title, but one of my podcasts was also called Fresh Courage in Retirement. But that's usually what's missing between what our dreams are and actually living our dream, is the courage that we need to build up to
Yeah,
make it.
I mean, you're retired. It should be easy, right? There's nothing. There's no loss. You don't have a job. You don't forget your
Yeah.
reputation. Just do it.
Tell
Just
me
do it.
how much courage you need, Ken.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Either that, or you just got to be a little bit just silly.
So yeah, I do 2 or 3 minute videos every week, and a lot of them are on YouTube. The Queen of Courage, and I started by holding up my art blocks,
Right.
and talking about why this is important. Of course, why it's important to me, but that's part of sharing my wisdom and mentoring others.
Yeah, well, you should be able to mentor. You got a couple of gray hairs. Should be something valuable. You might have picked up a thing or two along the way.
I'm 75 and I brag about it.
You're 75? Whoa, wait a minute. I thought you were like my age. I thought you were 61 or 62.
No, I live a pretty good life. No
Holy
hospitals,
cow.
no diabetes, no cancer. Nope. Shoo, go away. I won't take a part of that.
Yeah, I'm not part of that plan. That's not for me. I've given away my shares of all that stuff. Given away all I got out of the line. I was in the cancer line for a while. I just decided it was too long. Too many people in there. Oh, well, it's a really interesting conversation. I have to say, Sharon, you really got me thinking.
It's one of my goals.
Yeah, you've had an impact on me today, and I like that. I'm going to start to search LinkedIn now for senior and elderly mental health. I'll use that plus mental health to see what other guests, because this is a massive opportunity. Yeah, what retirees want.
Yeah, Ken Dykewell has been studying boomers for years and years and years, and he on several of the chapters in the back of each chapter, he would say where there's a deficit or an opportunity. And he admits that there is a big lack, and making it easy for people to transition into retirement with figuring out what they would like to do. Actually, we have to ask ourselves and then go hunting for it. But when I teach people their inner spark, it easily leads into finding their purpose, I think, because now they know what motivates them from inside instead of from a paycheck or alarm clock.
Absolutely. And those that alarm clock will motivate your booty to get up because you got to go get the paycheck.
And I've never actually said that before. That's the first time I said that.
Better mark it down, write it down so you remember it.
Yeah. Each one gets
Don't forget you're 75. You might forget something.
We'll have to do this again, Ken.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again. Very interesting. Well, and I'll be close to. I started my JAR podcast in Washington. My first city was Olympia, and then I ended up in Cooley City in the middle of the state. Very small town, if you'd know Cooley. I think most people in Olympia or in Washington wouldn't know it, but I was in a no stoplight, no stop sign town.
That's right next to the Cooley Dam, Grand Cooley Dam.
It's right next to the Cooley Dam. Yeah, exactly. It's right next to the Cooley Dam. There's a funny story about it, the whole thing. But Sharon, thanks for being a guest. I really appreciate it. I love what you're doing, and I love that you are jumping into the space unabashed, trying to figure it out. And you're not too worried about what happens or how you get there. You're just going to go.
I'm the one that decides what stops me.
You said that, and we said that in the beginning, right? I had somebody ask me when I started the JAR podcast, the tour. They said, "What if you fail?" And I didn't really know what the definition for fail. I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" I don't know. How would I define failure? I'm like, if I stopped, I guess that would be failure. I mean, I'd have a success up till then. It'd be some progress, but quitting would be failure. So yeah, I mean, you're successful until you stop.
Exactly.
Let's keep going.
We're going to keep going.
Yeah. I'm going to keep going. How do people find you? Let me throw your banner back up. They find you at Sharon, ROLPH.com.
I also
Where
have
else?
effortlessvitality.now, NOW.SITE.
Okay.
This SharonRolph.com looks more like a canned website, where effortlessvitality.now.site really expresses me in a much and very nice way. I designed most of it myself. Yeah.
Okay. Let's make sure you shoot me that in an email or something so I can get that in the show notes later when you go publish.
Yeah.
So this show,
get you a link to those 50 ideas of what they can do in the future.
Absolutely. So if you're thanks, a shout out for all the listeners, especially people listening to the recording. All of those links will be at the bottom of the show notes. So you can just drop down on whether you're listening on, iHeartRadio or Spotify or iTunes. Everything will be down in the notes. Sharon, again, thanks so much for being a guest. Totally appreciate you. And you've given me a whole new thing to a whole new rabbit hole to go down in mental health. Thank you. Thank you for dragging me into another river.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening and supporting mental health today. Trying to do our little part in this corner of the universe, addressing the mental health crisis. And guests like Sharon really highlight the opportunities for all of us to kind of pull our share and pull our weight. Thanks again, Sharon. Hang around. I'll see you in 30 seconds.
Yeah, loose, baby.
But we're about to go and make this vessel with these great professionals in public glass. We're not part of the community, but we're from the outer family of glass blowing. Yeah, we're going to go make a magical giant jar with optic lenses so that if you turn it, it changes all the time. So if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.